Hi, welcome to Bite Size Nutrition Week 1. This is a re-recording of the workshop because the workshop ran a little long this week, and I actually re-recorded my re-recording because I wasn't happy with it. I was getting a little bit of interruptions in my classroom, so this time I won't be as rushed, not saying as much. So my name is Laura Roy, and I am a high school teacher. I teach biomedical sciences and chemistry. But over the last few years, I've become really passionate about nutrition. And so I am pursuing becoming a nutritionist now. And I wanted to create these workshops so that I can give just one little piece of advice each week to help move people in the direction of having a healthy lifestyle, something that they will do for the rest of their lives, rather than a diet plan that you're going to follow for a few months and then put the weight back on, or see your health slide back in the other direction. So I'll start with a little background on myself. I studied biochemistry at Cal State Fullerton. This is where I first started falling in love with nutrition, because we get to learn in biochemistry about the mechanisms of how we process all these foods that we consume, all the chemical reactions that occur when we are eating and when we're making energy or we're making these macromolecules, and I just found it fascinating. So I began informally educating myself after college in nutrition, and that basically evolved into where I am now, where I've discovered functional nutrition. So I started my certification to become a functional nutrition counselor, quickly realized, no, this is not enough for me. I need to know all the science. I need to see the research. I want to know the mechanisms. So I began my master's degree in functional medicine and human nutrition. So I will be completing that in the next year. And aside from that, I'm also a certified personal trainer. I don't practice as a personal trainer, but I am the fitness trainer at the high school that I work at. That's a little bit about me. And I'll talk a little bit about what functional nutrition is on another slide. So I wanted to give you a little bit about my journey. So I've fluctuated between 145 and close to 200 pounds for the last, 10 years or whatever. And throughout this process, I tried all kinds of different diets. You name it, I've tried it. Arbonne detox, keto, low carb, calorie counting. So like obsessively weighing all my food and logging everything that I ate and making sure that I exercise an exact certain amount to get these deficits. And obviously that is not sustainable. We can all create some kind of program where we are eating just the amount of calories so that we can lose weight, but that is not a lifestyle. So that is why I continue to fluctuate in my weight. During this time, I also suffered from a few inconvenient health conditions. Nothing serious, but I had interstitial cystitis where I had to see a specialist for about 10 years. We tried all kinds of different medications and physical therapy and diets and things like that to try to improve this. And what would happen is during a flare up, I'd be literally getting up like 8 to 10 times per night to pee. It was terrible. I also suffer from chronic dry eye, so I was only able to wear my contacts for a few hours at a time. We ended up having to cauterize my tear duct shut so that we could actually just keep enough tears on my eyes. I also had some skin issues, breakouts, dandruff, things like that, psoriasis. So whenever I had made these changes in my health, I never saw any improvements with that. However, I did see a significant improvement in my health after the birth of my first son. So we quickly discovered that Daniel was allergic to dairy protein. So I gave up dairy, and I'm not asking any of you guys to give up dairy, but I had started kind of falling into this thing of, we need to be closer to being vegan. We need to give up gluten. We need to give up dairy. We need to give up soy. And in that process, I saw my symptoms of those conditions that I've just previously mentioned just disappear. And the weight just started falling off, and I wasn't even exercising. It was amazing. And I wasn't calorie counting. Now, the answer was not giving up gluten and dairy and animal products and things like that. I think what the answer was is that I was moving towards eating whole foods, real foods, like not relying on processed packaged things. The foods that because I think about now, what foods was I cutting out when I cut out dairy and gluten? Okay. So I was moving in the right direction, but I still didn't really have my head on straight yet. So unfortunately, I did put the weight back on. So here I am at close to 190 pounds, and here I am today. So what happened here was I had really educated myself on why we need to eat fruits and vegetables, why we need to eat fiber, when we should be eating animal products, all of these things. And that led me to just without calorie counting, without doing much, I lost all the weight because my body is working optimally. And I've kept off the weight for about a year, and I don't see us going back the other direction. Okay. So I think what's important is that we all find that we obtain the skills and that we know why we're doing what we're doing in order to have success in our health. So I'm gonna throw in, I did a demonstration here in my live lesson, so I'll cut that in now, and then we will go back to my current recording. Things that as I mentioned, I would try all these different diets and things like that. There's also all these different products. And I want to kind of shed a little bit of light on how the food industry is able to trick us, because most of these things are not monitored and most people don't know to look into them. And so let me give you guys an example. This is something that I do with my students when I start talking about nutrition. And I know this might seem kind of silly, and it has actually not much to do with what we're going to talk about today. But I usually start by showing them this. Okay. So Naked Juice Green Machine. Okay. So in the past, I used to think like, okay, yeah, you're supposed to consume fruits and vegetables. Like, so this would be a good thing to consume, right? So now later, with my scientific brain, I start kind of trying to break things down. Okay. Now this is showing a lot of reflection. So what I'm going to do, so I'm going to see if I can pull this up on here. Okay. I don't normally have to zoom at night, so the lighting's a little weird. Okay. So like, I'm looking at this going, oh, cool. Like there's all these fruits and all these vegetables, all these good things. These all seem like things that are really good for me, right? So let's kind of dig in a minute. All right, so 2 3/4 apples, 1/3 of a mango, 1/12 of a pineapple, 1/2 of a banana, and 1/3 of a kiwi. So if I had all of that fruit out in front of me right now, do you think that that would necessarily be a good idea to consume in one sitting? I'm hoping you're saying, no, that sounds a little bit crazy. Okay. We know that fruit is great for us and you should consume fruit. You shouldn't be afraid of it because it has sugar. We'll get more into that a little bit later. But that is way too much going on in one sitting. And it's actually going to pile on to that. So what's really concerning, I see people in the chat saying, no, that doesn't sound good. Well, something I should mention to you guys about juice is that when we juice fruit, we lose all of the fiber. And that is what makes the fact that it has sugar okay for us, which we will be talking about a little bit today. But, you know, since this is Green Machine, that means it contains vegetables, of course, right? So let me move over to my document camera, and I'm just going to do a few things here. All right, so on the bottle, it tells me, I'm just going to use 3 of these as examples. So let's start with spinach. Okay, so I got my scale here, stole it from work. Hello. Some spinach. And you guys are probably saying, well, gosh, didn't it say it had 102 milligrams of spinach? Is that enough spinach? Let me show you. Okay. So I'm going to throw this in the chat right now so that you guys can see it. So 102 milligrams of spinach is equal to 0.102 grams. Okay. So right now, this is measuring at 0.51. Just this one leaf of spinach, which already seems like a ridiculously small amount of spinach to put in this juice to claim that it has vegetables in it, this is 5 times too much. Okay. So let's try a smaller piece. Okay. Still too much. A little too little. Okay, we're a little over, but that's around the amount of spinach that is in this bottle of Naked Juice that you think you are getting your vegetables with. Okay. All right. It also says that it has 102 milligrams of broccoli. Now, funny story, I actually knocked this off the table right before we started this Zoom, and my dog ate it, so I had to get another piece. All right, we're gonna zero that out. So ignore this stuff in here, or I can get it up. All right, so this is a pretty small piece of broccoli. If I was trying to add this to my smoothie, I don't think that I would think that this is anything significant that was going to help my health. Sorry, I was reading the chat. It's funny. Okay, this is 3.15 grams. Okay, so again, I'm looking for 0.102 grams that is actually listed to be in this bottle. But you know, they purposely choose milligrams so that we're like, oh yeah, that sounds like a big number. You know, 102. Yeah, but it's milligrams. It's a small unit, right? Like using inches versus miles, right? Inches would be a small unit. Even that is too much broccoli to be what is in that batch. My question is like, what is the point? Why did they even bother? Okay, that's still too much. Okay, teeny, 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 tiny amounts. All right. All right, so dramatic effect is over. Here, I'll show you guys what it looks like for the kale. The kale is 51 milligrams of kale that's in here. 0.051 grams. Okay, so ridiculously small amount. So just be aware of labels and try to look into things or ask somebody who can. There's definitely been things for me that I thought sounded so great. Like, oh yeah, we hear about something like turmeric, for example. Oh, put turmeric on your food and you're going to get all the health benefits. No, like it's not enough to have any kind of therapeutic effect. So unfortunately, a lot of supplements and products that are out there, they're not regulated. They can say whatever they want and they can trick people because most people don't have a scale that they're going to weigh these things on and check it out. Oh, I almost forgot. Let me show you guys the sugar. All right, so I've got 53 grams of sugar. Let's look at what that looks like. Yeah. Please hold, let me grab a spoon or something to scoop that with. A little too much. we're close enough. That is a lot of sugar. All right. And then when you actually look at the ingredients, pull it up. Okay. For those of you guys who don't know, when you read the ingredient label, whatever is listed first is what there's the most of. So it goes from the most of to the least of. So also note that it's not apples, it's apple juice. So basically this is apple juice with like little specks of some vegetables and things in there. So not a health food. But that being said, like if you were someone who thought that was a healthy idea, I even just was going through and I was making meal prepping my protein shakes the other day. I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot I had this greens powder. And this product is talked about by all these health practitioners on podcasts and stuff like that. And I'm looking through it and gosh, this is so hard for you guys to see, but I'm reading the greens blend is 6,160 milligrams of all of these vegetable like things, which is about 6 grams, which is not a lot. And there's 14 different ingredients on here. So I'm like, okay, if we have 14 different things and all of that adds up to 6 grams, is probably not a significant enough amount of each of those things to make any kind of difference. Okay, so we got to read into this stuff. All right, moving along. So that my students always find that quite entertaining when I talk about nutrition with them. A lot of them walk around with these juices, and lo and behold, might as well just have some apple juice. It's cheaper. Okay, so what is functional nutrition? So this branches off of functional medicine. This is different than naturopathy. We don't not believe in using pharmaceuticals. In fact, I just took a pharmacology course in my grad school. So what we are looking at is trying to, rather than treat symptoms of conditions or whatever the case may be, we are trying to get to the root cause of the issue. And we're looking at the whole person and all aspects of their life, right? Are they getting sleep? Are they stressed out? Are they getting exercise? What environmental factors are they exposed to? And we look at how those impact all of our different body systems. And we try to look at how these things are connected. So if you've ever taken an anatomy or physiology class, that is kind of the focus, like how are our body systems connected to each other? But unfortunately, in conventional medicine, we have, if you have a heart issue, you go to a cardiologist. If you have a hormone issue, you go to endocrinologist. If you have something wrong with your nervous system, you're going to a neurologist. So, stomach, you go to your gastroenterologist. And we need specialists in all of these fields, and that there's definitely a place for that. But the question is, are all of your body systems failing you? And that's why you're seeing all these specialists? Or is there some connection here and some root cause of the issue that needs to be taken care of? Okay, so we're going to start with fiber. And during the live class at this point, I asked, what foods have fiber? What is fiber? Most people could answer foods that have fiber, but most people don't know what fiber is. So we will get into that a little bit. But first, I would like for you to, using a food logging app, I use MyFitnessPal. You can get the app on your phone, and I'll demonstrate on my phone, and I'll also demonstrate on the website right now. But I want you to just log a typical day. Just what kind of thing would you eat for snack, breakfast, lunch, dinner? It doesn't have to be a real day that occurred, just a typical day in the life of you. And what's going to be really important here when you're tracking is I want you to be very specific, okay? So if I had a turkey sandwich for lunch, I'm not going to add a turkey sandwich. I'm going to specify what kind of bread I used, what kind of meat I used, everything. So a lot of the brands are going to be logged in here. So for example, I use Dave's bread. All bread has different calories and different nutrients, so you want to be very specific. I use Dave's Killer Bread. And if you have the app, you can just scan the barcode of it as well. If you did eat out, like if I had a particular sandwich at Panera Bread, I could log that because as long as they're using the same recipe, it should be about correct somewhat. So, and we just need ballpark here anyways. So I logged how many servings I had. Okay, add that to my food diary. So, once you've logged all of your food and you're very, very specific about exactly what, what bread you were eating, what tortillas were you eating, things like that, we're going to check our fiber content. Now, what doesn't matter is the brands and things for whole foods like strawberries and blueberries and chicken and things like that. Okay. So I'm going to scroll down here and I'm going to go to view full report. Okay. And here I can see how much fiber I'm consuming. So I'm also going to go ahead and switch over to the app on my phone. If I can figure out where it is. Let me share my phone real quick. Okay, cool. There's my FitnessPal. Okay, so if you're logging on here, there is a barcode option, right? But okay, let's say I've finished logging my food. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click more, and then I'm going to go to nutrition, and I can see my fiber right at the third one down here. Okay, so most people I imagine are going to be in the range of like 7 to 15 grams, and I am here to tell you that the amount of fiber that you actually need to be consuming is 25 to 35 grams. And I'm sure you've heard fiber is good for you, and you probably think, oh, fiber is good for your digestive system. But I want to give you guys some more details so that you really understand all the impacts that fiber has on your body, and hopefully that'll make you more inclined to consume it. All right. So I think it's relevant here to discuss carbohydrates because technically fiber is a carbohydrate. I want to discuss the difference between simple and complex carbohydrates. Okay, so I have some structures here. These are simple carbohydrates, okay, just 1 or 2 sugar molecules, okay. This is glucose, this is what our cells use for energy. Here's sucrose, okay, table sugar. And compare that to a polysaccharide, complex carbohydrate. These are like starches. These little wiggly lines here, that just means the molecule goes on and on and on and on and on. So if you just think logically, like which ones are going to break down faster? Well, there's not many bonds to break here, right? I just have this one bond to break. So that's going to impact your blood sugar very quickly. Versus the complex carbohydrates, there's a lot of bonds to break. Okay, so that's going to break down more slowly and not impact your blood sugar as much. Okay, so there's some examples of complex carbohydrates: fruits, vegetables, whole grains, things like that, versus things that are like refined carbohydrates. I'll show you guys in a second with the anatomy of a wheat germs. Okay, so I want you guys to not be afraid of carbohydrates, but just know that you need to be eating complex carbohydrates. And the complex carbohydrates are typically accompanied by fiber. And different types of foods have different types of fibers. So I don't want any of you guys concentrating on which types of fiber you get. I think just what's important is that you're just getting a variety of different types of fiber. This is a picture of one type of fiber molecule. Very complex, and our body doesn't have the enzymes to break down fiber. So it just continues through your system. Now, the reason why I have this picture here is I just wanted to point out when we have refined carbohydrates, white bread, white pasta, white rice, we are stripping out the outer layer of this. And this is the anatomy of a wheat kernel. And you'll see down here at the bottom that the outer layer is where we have the majority of the fiber. Okay, so when we refine carbohydrates, we lose about 2/3 of the fiber. So that is why we want to consume these things in their whole form, whole wheat, whole grain stuff. All right. So here are some examples of foods that are high in fiber: fruits, vegetables, nuts, legumes, okay, beans, all that good stuff. And even though fruit has sugar in it, simple carbohydrates, because it's accompanied by the fiber, we're not afraid of these. So don't be concerned about consuming fruits. They are awesome for you, obviously, in moderation. Okay, vegetables though, unlimited. Eat as much as you want. Okay. All right, so let's talk about some benefits of fiber. I'm going to hide my meeting controls. Okay, so fiber is going to make you feel full longer. Why? So it's actually going to delay gastric emptying, which what I mean by that is like at each step of digestion, so this is coming down your esophagus, goes into your stomach, there's going to be signals for your body to have this move down to the next step and then to the next step. So that is slowed. So you're going to feel full longer because of that. I don't know if you've ever mixed like a fiber powder into liquid, but it kind of like absorbs that water. So it creates bulk, which is going to also help you feel full longer. And it modulates some hormones. And I'll talk more about some of these on another slide. But what we know is that it has an impact on ghrelin, and ghrelin is considered the hunger hormone. So we have ghrelin that's going to tell your brain that you are hungry, essentially, and leptin is going to basically tell your brain that you're full. Glucagon-like peptide 1, what the heck is that? Well, it regulates your appetite, and it's also going to enhance insulin production. And peptide YY is also going to function to basically reduce your appetite. And cholecystokinin is going to help produce compounds to digest your food. So I don't expect this to mean a whole lot to most people, but I think that understanding that there is like some science behind this, like we actually know the mechanisms in which fiber is impacting even our endocrine system. It's impacting us on and on a molecular level. So those of you guys who have high cholesterol, I want you to really pay attention, or if you have people in your family who do. Cardiovascular disease is very serious, one of the leading causes of death. Here I've got a blood vessel, and this is plaque buildup. Okay, there are no symptoms for having plaque buildup in your arteries, and there's no test that's going to like tell you if you have plaque buildup in your arteries. Like we can test specific spots, but like in your heart, but this is the reason why you hear people who are 50 years old just dropping dead. Okay. So what happens is if your LDLs are too high, I call them the lousy cholesterol, LDL, and you don't have enough healthy cholesterol, HDL. So H for healthy, L for lousy. You're going to end up with this plaque buildup because LDL is going to be carrying cholesterol to the tissues. HDL is supposed to carry it back to the excess stuff back to the liver. So it ends up building up here. Okay. So fiber can actually trap dietary cholesterol, and it can trap bile acids, which are produced by the liver, and they are to break down fats. That's their job. They're supposed to help you digest your fats. So, and the bile acids are actually made partly from cholesterol. So the fiber will literally trap some of it and just carry it out, because fiber is just going to go move all the way through and just be excreted. And if we're losing some of this bile acid, which is normally recycled, so we normally would take that back up and we can use it again. But now we've lost it. So now we're going to use some of our cholesterol to make more bile acid. Okay. And if you continue eating fiber, maybe some of that's going to get excreted. So this is going to lower your cholesterol levels. And it also has been shown to increase the number of LDL receptors, which would also be a good thing in lowering your LDL. Okay. Another thing that it does is it traps carbohydrates. So it's trapping the cholesterol and the carbohydrates. So it limits their ability to be digested quickly. So what that means is, maybe you've heard of this glycemic index, where if it's a high glycemic index, it's going to spike our blood sugar. Okay. And then if we're spiking blood sugar, we're spiking insulin. And if you are familiar with diabetes, we know that insulin is going to your body's not going to respond to insulin as well if you're constantly spiking your blood sugar. And in addition to that, so when insulin is present, your body is in a fed state. So it is not going to be doing the functions that would lead to fat breakdown. So if you want to be losing weight, we don't want insulin to be present, basically. So basically, the enzymes are not even able to access the carbohydrates if it's trapped. So it slows down the digestion of carbohydrates. So we want that. That's why I mentioned those simple versus complex carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are good. We need them in our diet, but you want to have this slow release of the glucose into the bloodstream. Okay, it's also going to improve our bowel movements. Most people are familiar with this. So it increases the fecal volume. So your body's going to know, oh, there's a bunch here. We need to excrete it. So if you suffer from constipation, fiber can absolutely help you. And it also decreases the pressure inside what we call the lumen here. And that reduces the transit time, the time that it takes for the food to move through your digestive system and be excreted. This is my favorite part. So the microbiome, I just took a whole class on this. It's super awesome. So we actually have 10 times as many microbe cells as we have human cells. So now this has become such a huge field of interest in how these microbes interact with our body systems and what impact they have on health. And there's just a laundry list full of the health benefits and the kinds of conditions that can be impacted by what bacteria we have here and what ratios. So I'm just going to concentrate on the fiber aspect for right now. But eating fiber is going to increase beneficial bacteria. So the good bugs that we tend to eat fiber, whereas the bad bugs do not. So we are feeding those, and those increased numbers of beneficial bacteria have been linked to all kinds of health improvements. And some of those bacteria produce what we call short-chain fatty acids. And you might have heard of this before. Pretty recently, in the last few years, I remember that everyone was talking about short-chain fatty acids because we can use them for energy. So MCT oil became very popular. So the MCT oil is a short-chain fatty acid. So that was the idea behind that. So we can use that for energy. We make one of the short-chain fatty acids that the bacteria make is called butyrate, and that is going to influence a lot of things here. So I'm going to talk about that right now. So we have these are intestinal cells, and what's happening here is we know that the short-chain fatty acids can interact with these receptors, and those receptors are going to influence us to activate these hormones. And these two hormones, glucagon-like peptide and peptide tyrosine, PYY, these are satiety hormones. So that means to help you feel more full, right? That's a signal in your brain, hey, we're good here. So you're going to eat less, basically. There's another receptor that it can also interact with, and basically based on the enzymes that it activates or inactivates, it's going to cause us to utilize more fat for energy. The short-chain fatty acids can also interact with our fat cells, adipocytes. So what this is going to activate is some enzymes and hormones that are going to reduce fat accumulation. It's going to help stimulate fat breakdown, and it also reduces insulin signaling. So these are all good things if we're concerned about weight loss, okay, and not overeating. All right, so that is what I have there. So my advice is that you try to start increasing your fiber intake this week. 25 to 35 grams is your goal. Probably a little bit on the lower end for women, a little higher end for men. And I recommend that you start slow. Okay, start low and go slow. It can be kind of a shock to your digestive system, and you don't want to be upsetting these bugs too, because it's just an overload of fiber. So just increasing by a little bit each day as you try to get to your goal. And I do want to say that I don't want you to use fiber supplements. There are some exceptions, and you can talk to me about that specifically. I can give some recommendations, but a lot of the fiber supplements are not going to have, well, a lot of them have a lot of creepy things in them, for one. And then you're just losing the benefit of eating whole foods, because there's lots of things in fruits and vegetables and nuts and grains and things like that that are really, really, really good for you that we'll be talking about in the upcoming weeks. So we want to get all those synergistic effects where like we have a combination of all these great things in the food that are helping us attain health. So that is my presentation. Please reach out if you have any questions for me.